Yes, now it's all about sharing. It's all about joining together, feeling that we are one, we are connected, and it's all about collaboration. That's why I'm so happy to be interviewed by you now. And if you can share what is the topic of today and how did you think of doing this
Yes,
interview,
of
actually?
course, because when it comes to, collaboration and co-creation and even sharing, Christiana, you've been sharing for quite some time when it comes to sharing your pranic journey, sharing the energy, and even sharing this information, because I just read this book not too long ago and I highlighted, all throughout the book, I made so many different highlights, and it was so
Well,
amazing just to read your words and all the interviews that you've done with different people and practitioners. And this was such an undertaking, like, thank you for doing this.
yeah, well, thank you so much. I hope I get to publish the second part because it's a three series. It's part of a series of three books, actually. And I'm planning the second one. I've started writing it in 2018, but honestly, since I moved in this area and traveled a lot, I didn't get to write that much and publish. I have three more books to publish that are in the process. So there's a continuation to that saga, and I hope it's soon to come out from the
Wow, so
printing.
three more books. So it's a trilogy, or two more
Two more
books.
books, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, of this series, and then another one is The Goddess Speaks, which is a book basically with messages channeled by from various goddesses, various versions of the feminine energy that
Okay.
I just love so much.
Beautiful. Because wow, so this will be a trilogy when it's complete. And this
Hmm.
one was in 2018. What do you feel like
Yes.
were some of the challenges, or was there any adversity that you had to overcome? Were there any obstacles in writing this book and really getting it published and putting out that information to the public?
No, not at all. I just feel everything that I do is
Mhm.
completely divinely guided. So actually, each book that I've written five books so
Mhm.
far that are published, and every time I've written a book, it was never planned to
Mhm.
be a book. Therefore, I never sat at my desk and I said, I'm going to write a book now, and then struggled with writing it. If, the books that I've written and published were just me basically journaling about various experience of or observations, and then all these things eventually gathered together because there are several articles that I published on various websites, blogs, or just
Mhm.
written for myself to just write down the experience, and then I compiled it on into a book because after the first book, people asked for the second one, and after the second one, they asked for the third one, and so on. And I kept writing my experience and sharing what I felt and saw in my travels, and then compiled it into a book
Mhm.
when they were ready. So it was not hard at all. I was just guided to write the whole thing. Everything was completely divinely orchestrated, so I didn't have any obstacles with it,
Wow.
of course.
Wow,
Yeah.
divine orchestration, divinely orchestrated. I like that, you know? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because when you say that it wasn't hard at all, even publishing five books already by this time, there's so many people that, they have ideas, they have feelings, they have things that they haven't revealed to other people, and they feel it pretty challenging
Yes.
to compile things into a book and even self-publish, put out something like that. What do you feel gave you, or what do you feel gives you that sense of like, I'm just going to take
Recording in
action, or I'm
progress.
just, have you always been an action taker in that way? Just like, just doing things?
Um, well, I can tell you the difference before my previous life, the life before meditation, and this life that I'm tuning to source and do things guided by source. Before that, when I was, for example, into the corporate business or doing my own events company and so on, I was a woman of action, so I was doing a lot of things and many things, but everything I did was with a certain effort because I was doing it out of my own will. I was doing it because the way I thought it should be done, the way my mind orchestrated things. And when you orchestrate things with your mind, mind has certain obstacles. So obviously it would break, things would work, but some other things wouldn't work that well. So it would take a lot of energy and sometimes bumps on the road and going back and forth and so on. I was pretty much successful in everything I did, but sometimes it took a lot of effort for that success to manifest. These days, because I don't follow success anymore, I don't follow a certain goal, I don't have a certain purpose or should, or, I'm not prone to action. Action moves through me. Then things are pretty much effortless. There's a different rhythm to it. So yes, when you're meant to do something, for example, if I would get carried away by other actions and I wouldn't finish, for example, this book, one day before the festival, I was literally starting the Pranic Festival in Romania, and the book wasn't, because I've also translated in Romanian, so there's a Romanian edition published after the English edition, right? So I had to translate the whole book, edit it again, and self-publish it again in another language. And I was kind of distracted by all the actions that I was doing, including the Pranic Festival that I was organizing, which is not always easy to organize. And it was the 13th, so 2 days before starting the festival, and I had to publish it for the people to have it at the festival. So that whole night, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything else for the next 2 days because my whole attention, energy, and focus was on finishing the book. Basically, it's not me doing it. It's the universe moving through me doing just one single thing. You can't move away from that. You don't want to eat. You don't want to sleep. You don't want to see friends. You don't want to scroll on Facebook. You don't want to do anything else because that's what you have to do, basically. I mean, if you would postpone it, you would have pain in your body or something. It doesn't work to move away from source. So that's how it is.
Thank you for describing that. Thank you for that illustration and that breakdown of the universe moving through you. It's like when you feel that energy of creation that's just moving through you and that just has to manifest into something, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what comes. I love how you talked about that, Christiana, where you were in the corporate world, you were in the corporate fields, and that you were a woman of action, and how that's carried over. But now it's different. You say now action moves through you instead of you trying to move through action.
Yeah. Basically, when I listened to you explaining it back to me or summing it up, I realized that it's the difference between the masculine way of doing things and the feminine way of doing things. Because before I was in my masculine energy and being very depleted by it, being in a woman's body and acting from a masculine energy is very depleting. You can actually get sick from it, which I actually did. So when you move back into your feminine and you let the energy be manifested through you instead of you trying to manifest things, it's much more fulfilling, much more enjoy. There's an enjoyment, there's a pleasure to it, there's the actual joy of creation. Yeah.
Beautiful. Can you go into that a little bit for anyone who's never heard of the concept of what you talk about, which I love, Christiana. You talk about you don't spend your time, you gain your time. You talk about gaining time and not energy depletion, but things that are energy enhancing and energy nourishing. Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a flow to life, as in Qi Kung or Tao. Tao is all about the flow, right? And when you go with that energy, when you feel into your deepest core and feel what would be the best for all, then you move from that energy. For example, we were scheduled today at 7:15, and as I looked into that moment, I wasn't feeling myself being ready. There weren't much obstacles against doing the interview at 7:15, but it would have been a struggle and an effort to a certain extent, because I was in a different city and so on. And just with a little twitch, a little calibration, going with the flow, of course, asking for your permission because you were the one who set this up, it just clicked into perfection. I hope for both of us, in a way that is no struggle, no effort, no hurry, no let me do this, but I have to do that. No, none of that, And I think that's life in general. We can do things from a pace of hurry and striving and should. I call people that always say should. I call them shouldologists because I was one. I was a big shoudologist. Yeah, and you can move from that into a state of flow of what would feel best, what would move better for me. And sometimes people worry about offending other people or not being serious or not being professional, or if I ask for more time, maybe the other one would be upset, or if I come a little later, maybe the other ones would say I'm not serious. But when you go with your flow and you really tune into your soul, and then you ask for permission from the rest of the people, you might notice that the rest of the people might need the same amount of time or even more, and everything clicks into place harmoniously. So it's just feeling things from a deeper place and acting from a deeper place than the place of the mind, where you always say, oh, this was scheduled, this is what I should do. This is for, people ask me about, for example, social media interaction, because that's a big game now, and everybody wants to be famous on social media and famous in general and all that stuff. I never look for that. I mean, you see me having like 17 likes on a post or something, and it's really not important for me, even that. But to go out there every day and try to come up with something, just to be present online, just to write something or put yourself out there, or have content. Everybody wants to have content, so they take pictures of the cats, the paninis, the coffee, everything, just to. Yeah, there's a struggle in that. There's a constant effort, a constant tension inside. There's no rest, because you always look for appreciation outside of yourself. You look to be validated by other people. Even teenagers or little children are now acting, living their lives through the validation of others instead of just living. So I look at very small children or adolescents. If they haven't posted a certain situation on their social media, it's like it hasn't happened. It's like it never existed in their experience. Why? Because their peers didn't validate the moment, or encouraged it, or commented, or so on. So people get used to experience life and experience the sacredness of being through the eyes of others, and through the validation and the appreciation and the acceptance of others, which becomes an external experience and becomes an effort, instead of just living, just being, just posting or expressing. Basically, posting is expressing from the core of your own creativity, what needs to come forth, what needs to be spoken, when it needs to be spoken, if it needs to be spoken, and if not, you can just be in silence. There's some part of you that emanates either way, that can be felt and sensed from miles away, from galaxies away, even without you moving a finger. And I had that experience last year, when a client of mine, a person, saw a meditation. I do equinox meditation, full moon meditation, or other type of meditation with people publicly. And then I disappear for a while and do my own stuff with the portals and the sacred sites and whatnot that nobody sees, right? And that person tuned into that meditation, and then I disappeared from the online environment. And 6 months later, he wrote to me and said, I want to have a session with you, because I also do one-on-one sessions, one-on-one processes, healing sessions, and so on, coaching. And I said, yeah, okay, let's just schedule and see how it works. No, but I have to share my experience. I want to have a session with you because for the last 6 months, because I want to, gift something to you, because for the last 6 months you've been with me and teaching me every day in my meditation or in my sleep. And I'm like, what? I don't even know. I mean, I have never seen that person. At that moment of that conversation, I had no idea how his face looked like or who he was. And yet he was sharing with me that for 6 months we've been in a collaboration in the subtle realms and constantly sharing information in his meditation. So I was like, oh, okay, so I don't have to do anything actually. It's all being done. It's all being, I just had a huge confirmation yet one more time that actually everything is done through us, that we emanate constantly, even when we sleep, even when we zone out, even when we do completely different other things. And whoever is ready to perceive that, they get it. Without me having to reach out to someone, post every day, make sure I have followers. You're able to follow within, from within, from the core of your essence, and that's the best following, or followers I prefer, like literally.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Even when you're describing that, for some people, I know it's hard to even comprehend how you could be somewhere in the subtle realms or even in the physical realm, because I remember hearing that there were people, certain individuals that claimed that they saw you in certain locations, maybe dancing at a festival or inside of a group or a crowd, and you don't remember being there at that moment, but they described your outfit, your garb, and like they said, no, you were there,
Yes, yes. Yes, my physical body was that I was aware of, this part that I was aware of was, for example, here in this office or somewhere in the house, right? And they were saying that another aspect of me with the same shape, that's how I like to call it, because, it's another aspect of me with the same shape. There's different aspects of me that have different shapes. One can be in the shape of a panther. One can be in the shape of a, luminous being in another dimension. One can be in the shape of a Syrian princess, or, there's different aspects in different shapes, but this same shape was having another experience in another country at an event that I was not aware of. And oftentimes I feel the temperature or the smells or the impressions from another part of the planet, or a gathering with a group or certain things, while I'm sitting at home peacefully and not even watching a video about it or something. So you can actually have that experience once you expand your field a little bit. Yes.
It's incredible. It's incredible just to be expanded by the idea of what's possible, of what's possible. And as I'm reading your book, they're going to look, and I highlighted certain places that I wanted to ask you about, because you talk a lot about meditation, and specifically how interviewing all these different people who came from all these different walks of life, all these different cultures, had all these different backgrounds. Some people were more scientific, some others were philosophical, and some others were, in different areas. But you said each one has his own method, but they all agree that a balanced lifestyle and meditation are part of the process. So when it came to pranic nourishment, really nourishing that chi and harnessing that energy, why do you feel like meditation has always been a foundation, across the board?
Well, because it's always about going within, and however you do it, it's called meditation. Some people meditate literally sitting somewhere in a pretzel pose for minutes or hours, sitting still in a certain position, and that's their way of going within. Some others are meditating while creating art. A painting activity can be a deep meditation because you tune into source, and you start streaming color and shape and various forms. And I would show you, if I had here around, just one of my paintings, for example. That's another way to meditate. When you choose a canvas and you start putting color and shape to it, and something comes up. I had no idea what I would do when I started putting my first brush on this thing. I had no idea what will come out of it, but every dot, every shape, every corner of it manifested one after the other, like a journey, and that is a meditation. Other people create music, and that's meditation. Other people are jogging and repeating mantras while doing so, and that's meditation. Qigong is a form of meditation, and so on. So whatever makes you get in the zone, tune within, connect to your spirit, ground yourself, stay present. That some people make love, some other people are dancing, or whatever activity, or play sports. I've seen people that are entering the alpha theta state while playing sports because their attention is fully focused, their body is fully present, each move is completely presently observed, and that's a form of meditation for them. And they get so energized that they cannot eat or sleep for hours and hours and hours after playing tennis or football. ATP is being produced in their bodies from that form of meditation. So anything that tunes you within and helps you produce energy instead of consume energy is useful and is very beneficial on the pranic journey. So on that book, on the Pranic World Book, I was speaking about how meditation helps people basically produce energy, to produce ATP, to have more energy in your cells, which is, ATP is the energy that nourishes our cells, for the ones that don't know what it is, And this ATP is being produced in a certain amount while you sit on a couch. You can produce your body weight in ATP, but when you run, for example, or when you do certain energy practices, you can produce 3 times or 4 times your body's weight in ATP, which is way high, right? So the question would be, what helps produce more energy? And meditation has been noticed to be the common practice for all these people, because each time you get into the alpha theta state, which is a state of your mind, a state of your brain waves being measured to be either in alpha or theta, for the ones who don't know what alpha theta states are. Each time you get there, you're actually producing more melatonin, which is a hormone that's very important for the body, and you're naturally producing it while you sleep. You can also produce large quantities when you meditate or when you fast. When you fast, you produce 400 to 500 more times of melatonin in your gut system. So it's huge amount of melatonin that is produced naturally when you give your gut system a rest. And this melatonin helps regulate your hunger hormones, which are leptin and ghrelin. So it helps you basically feel less hungry or not hungry at all and feel satiated. And it also helps regulate the production of ATP. So it helps regulate the energy that you produce in your cells. So that's why meditation is so important for everyone. I've given the scientific explanation because, I don't know, maybe your audience needs a perspective that is deeply rooted in science, not necessarily just spiritual. So there's an explanation why meditation is so important. It actually helps you produce energy and build new cells, build and nourish, your atoms
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Yes. And thank you for just giving these thorough explanations. You're really giving us, a lot to digest. It's awesome. Just the way that you speak. It's like I'm reading the book again. Through. I feel like the words, they're coming straight from the pages, you know, when you're talking about the leptin and the ghrelin and melatonin and the adenosine triphosphate and you know, even I started wearing like blue light blockers because, you know, you were talking about blue light at night and the different things that come from the
Mhm.
screens and what it all means. So, you know,
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
all this
Mhm.
scientific, you know, blending both worlds together, the spiritual, the scientific, you know, having a harmonious marriage of the two, you know? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah, marriage now is important in these fields because we've been either fully confined to science and denying everything holistic and saying that everything is woo-woo. And the very important discoveries that were made in the holistic world were basically shunned off by
you.
science. And the other half of this marriage was the holistic world that was denigrating everything that science would bring out because they were saying it's not so rooted in spirit, it's not so tuned into source, and so on. Now, finally, they're marrying back together as they used to be before, you know, before the Inquisition, before people started to be burned at stake, and so on. Science and spirituality would actually go hand in hand. Uh, if you look at the Pythagorean schools or the Atlantean or Lemurian teachings, they were very holistic because they were regarding each part of our bodies and energy bodies and how we're interacting with the whole world and other worlds, but they were also very scientific. If you look at any explanation from any saint or sage that comes from the Qigong or yoga, from 5,000 years ago or so. They were very holistic because they were talking about our connection to sun, to galaxies, to Big Dipper, to you name it. But they were very scientific as well because a yoga treatise, if you read it, about the energy channels, about the nadis, about the organs, it can be very well a medicine treaty. Uh, it can be as well a scientific treaty. It can be considered a science. Yoga is actually a science. It's a very deep-rooted science that talks about the nerves, the muscles, the bones, the sympathetic and parasympathetic system. It's a science treaty. It should be taught in medical schools, you know, morning to evening. So the two worlds were married very well in the previous times. And in the holistic people, the alchemists, the magicians, the wizards, as we call them now, they were straight on scientists. Like really, I was hearing very recently, 2 days ago, I think, and I feel to bring this up. I was hearing a conversation of a sadhu, a conversation that he had with Babaji. Babaji is a yogi that left, came into this world a few thousands of years ago, and he preserved his body in a very youthful state. And to this day, when he appears to people, he appears as a 25-year young man, right? So he was able to preserve his body on indefinite time, and he promised to stay in that body or to preserve that appearance for as long as humanity needs it. And he was, from time to time, he appears to various groups of yogis and he teaches them stuff, right? And especially he teaches about immortality and pranic nourishment and liberation from karma and the science of Kriya Yoga that's very famous and very one of the most advanced form of yoga on the planet. And he was discussing to a sadhu that to yogi guru, for example, yogi saint that is living to this day, and he was reporting that conversation. And Babaji was explaining how if you want to take a photograph of him and he doesn't want you to, there's a very scientific way for your photograph to not be taken. Because you are constantly emanating light, right? And that's how the camera is able to, or a person is able to see your image because you are emanating light, and the light is being refracted in the person's eye or camera, and then it's coming back to either the brain or the mechanism of the photo, because actually every device that we've made is a replica of our own brain or body system. So the camera is able to take that picture because it's actually taking that light and doing an image out of it. But if you pull back your light onto your core, which very often happens to people who becomes invisible, by the way, in case you were wondering about that, there's no refraction that can be produced, so that person can actually can't see you or can't take your picture.
And,
you know.
You called it pulling back your light.
That's how he explained it. Basically, you pull, instead of emanating light outwardly, you control the atoms to go within your center.
And you learned how to do this consciously?
No, I've never tried consciously. When I want to be invisible, I just command it. I ask Source to do that for me if necessary. But I don't have a mentalized process of how things happen. So I've never commanded my body to I've never consciously did bilocation, consciously did teleportation or any of that. I don't do it based on my own ego or will. But if there's a necessity, for example, if I'm in danger or in any way, I command invisibility. Or if it's something not comfortable, you can command it. And if it's meant to be, then people actually, have their attention pointed in another direction. So
wow. This is amazing. So can you talk to us about that experience that you had when you became immaterial? And it was when you were walking across the street, or you said you almost got hit by a bus. Can you talk about that? Uh-oh. Did we lose her?
I think the connection went off a
Energy is
little
high.
bit.
The energy is high. We're back.
The topic was off charts for Instagram. But can you please repeat? Because I didn't hear your full sentence. I got the topic, but I'm making sure that everybody is hearing, and I'm also getting the complete picture of what you said.
Talk about that experience when you became immaterial. You said you almost got hit by a bus. Do you recall that?
Yeah, that was in my early days, about 10 years ago, I think. It was in 2013, 14 or so. And I was shifting interdimensionally. So I was basically 1 foot in one world, 1 foot in the other, the way you are when you are at the beginning and you never know what's what. And I was working with some very high energies, not eating much back then either. And literally working with, interdimensional weaving that I wasn't very trained on yet. So it was a work in progress, right? So I would come out of a very deep meditation on something that was completely from a different dimension, and I would just come out of the park and cross the street, not being aware that I didn't fully integrate in my physical, like fully merged into my human shape yet. And so that lack of awareness almost cost me, not necessarily my life, but, put me in danger, because I was crossing the street and I was very relaxed. And like I said, in between worlds, my attention was focused here, but not fully. And I noticed that the driver that was coming towards me was acting as if nobody was on the crossing point. He was very straightforward, coming towards me, looking right at me, but not seeing anything. And as I got startled, I probably grounded myself better, because, when you're almost getting hit by a bus, you're a little shaken off. And as that happened, probably I got fully back into my body, and he was able to see that the person is actually standing in front of him and hit the brakes. But he was looking right at me before and after. So he was not with his attention pointed in another direction. He wasn't checking his phone. He was looking right at me. So that's how I was able to figure out this guy is looking right at me, and he's not seeing that there's a person on the crossing point. So something should happen that he doesn't, So I got startled. I rushed a little bit, and that's how he noticed, oh, there's someone here. And he got scared too. He was like, shoot, where does that come from?
Sure.
So that's just one experience. That's just one experience. And sometimes when you're in your car with your car, it can all become invisible, which is even more dangerous. So you can shift the frequency of your vehicle the same way you shift your frequency of your body, which is good, for example, when you want to cross certain points on lockdown, but it's not good when you're in a very busy, like, crossing point or something with many cars around you. So yeah, that's something to be very aware and pay attention to. I'm always paying attention to these things because
it's interesting too, Christiana, because when you said you were crossing the street, you came out the meditation from the park, and your molecules and atoms hadn't yet taken, physical form. It's interesting. You didn't say that the driver wasn't paying attention or they didn't lack awareness. You said that you lacked awareness in that moment.
Yes, I take responsibility on that. Not that I lacked awareness, but back then I wasn't quite sure that this can happen. That was, I think, my first visible, clear experience of me not being visible. I wasn't sure that people around me can't see me in certain instances. So, for example, I was seeing that certain friends are passing me by on the street, very close to me. And then when I called their names, they're really surprised. But I thought maybe they're not paying attention or something. So that was my first direct experience when I noticed someone looking straight at me and not being aware that I was there. It happened several times after, when I was, but I was still getting used to it, because before you experience it yourself, you read it in the books, but you think that only saints and sages can have these experiences, and it happens only to, people who have lived in the caves and are consciously doing it and so on. So you're never really sure that it's actually happening to you, and especially if you don't do it on purpose. So that was my experience, that I've never had that experience before, so I lacked the awareness of the fact that my body can do that, basically. That several other times, friends were sitting in front of me or next to me. For example, in a sauna, if you meditate with fire or sun, it can happen more often, at least in my experience, because fire or sun can really raise your vibration, shift your vibration quite highly. And I was in a sauna meditating with the fire in the sauna. In the charcoal, there's fire, right? And I was focused on that, and the friend came in and sat in front of me, and he was not giving any sign of wanting to greet me or even looking straight at me, like as if I was there. And it was a distance of less than a meter between us, right? So when I moved my attention from the fire towards him, like literally drawing back my attention from the meditation and becoming fully present with him, he had this reaction, like, where were you? And I was right here. I didn't come through the door. Why are you hiding? Why are you hiding away? That was the literal conversation. And I was like, I wasn't hiding away. I was just meditating. You came in. I shifted my attention. You are doing this now. I don't know what's happening, you know. So, so that was my second experience. Again, not conscious, not through my own will, and never orchestrated by me consciously. And I had several, and then the third experience that I know of also at the beginning was that I kept telling a friend about these things, and he was a client that became a friend as well, and he was taking my classes, he heard my stories in the classes, and then he went on a trip with me, another friend, and I woke up very early in the morning to go meditate at the Sphinx, and I was meditating for some time, I don't know, hours or tens of minutes. So he came and sat right next to me on the grass, not giving any sign that he would recognize my presence or say hi. You know, it's first time seeing a person in the morning, you say hi and stuff. He didn't do any of that. And I said to myself, oh, he's so respectful of my meditation. That's so nice, you know. And then after a while, I don't know how long, I came out of the meditation and I said hi back to him, right? Because he wasn't meditating, he was just sitting there. And he was really, really, really surprised. He was next to me, sitting on the grass, like, again, less than a meter away. And yet he wasn't aware that I was physically present in that space until I went out of the meditation, said hi to him, and said, now I know what you're talking about. And I said, are you kidding me? Like, is it true that you didn't see me while I was sitting here all this time? He said, no, like, mark my word, I had no idea that you were here. Now I believe you. And he wasn't believing me for like 2 years. He was like, because he was an IT guy, very used to science. So I was not expecting him to ever believe me until he had that experience. So that is my three first experiences that I had, me not being aware of anything and people not really being aware of what's happening.
You know, thank you for sharing this, Christiana, because it's already just expanding just to hear about this testimony, you know, just to hear about these experiences that you've had and other people's experiences of witnessing and becoming aware of what was already there, you know, that you were always there, but they were unaware in that moment. Because even as you spoke earlier, when you were talking about, you know, saints and sages, because, you know, you and I both know a gentleman named Sam Jones. You know Samuel Jones?
Sam, yeah, he was here in Romania with us, and he participated to many of our pranic processes, of course.
So, you know, I met Sam Jones here in the States, and we actually came in contact with each other. I went to visit him. I drove up. I met him and his son, and I spent a little time with him. And he actually reveres you so much. I don't know if you know this, but he really respects you. He really looks up to you. And he was telling me about, you know, he was telling me about Saint Germain and the Ascended Masters and different, you know, disciplines when it comes to activating like the I am presence. And he told me that out of all the people, like, you're one of the top, at least top 2 people that he's ever met in his entire life, that he considers one of those, you know, one of those saints and sages, one of those people that emanates that presence when he is filled, like he
yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I'm really honored. Sam had 1 or 2 experiences with me of that kind. Yeah, I remember now that he reported, because he also did private sessions with me and some one-on-one process or something. And at some point during that, when I'm in process with someone or a group, it seems like my being is always with them in some way. And he was having some tough time, I don't know how, and he was at the movies, and he said that I literally appeared in front of him at the movies. I forgot this story, and I don't remember the whole thing, because ever since then there were many experiences of many people telling me stories, and I don't put them in my mind so that my ego wouldn't go, you know, I don't want to tap my shoulders for this, because it's nothing that I do on purpose. But he told me a story or two where he had these experiences with me. Yeah, I remember now about Sam. Yeah, he's a sweet person. And he was here at the Pranic Festival. He went with us in the Trip of the Sun at the Romanian Sphinx and several other trips. And Yeah, several processes. So he had some direct
And
experience
you
with
know,
that as well.
when you're talking about these experiences, Christiana, because for anybody who's just hearing this, or you know, they don't really have a concept or something around them to really get a grasp or a feel for it, you know, and they might not have read things like Autobiography of a Yogi, or like you talk about the teachings of the masters of the Far East, or what was that? What's that book that
Yes,
you were?
yes, that's what I was wanting to tell you. Yes, thanks for picking that up. I was thinking of this book that I always recommend for people who don't trust that these experiences are possible. Because I don't want you to believe in what I say. Of course, I would love that people have their own experiences on this so that they can basically believe it straight on, like in their own lives. Like I have read about it and I was sure that this is true. But until I've experienced it, I wasn't sure that it can be true for me and when and how, right? And I wish that people could experience this. But before that, there's a group of scientists that has been in the Tibetan area in the 1920s, I believe. There were 11 scientists who went there to take some documents from the Tibetan monasteries or something, and they ended up being greeted by a person who was 600 years old. The first person that gave them any details on how to get to the monastery and how they intercepted them in a marketplace somewhere in that area, and they would know who they are and what they came for. You know, when you're 600 years old, you're pretty much knowing everything about everything in this physical plane. Like, it's not a big deal, right? So they saw the scientists, they went straight to them, they told them one thing or another to make conversation, and eventually they revealed that they can help them with their uh, expedition, right? And this person who was 600 years old or so took them to that monastery. And they made acquaintance with various people who were 600 to 800 to 1,200 years old and so on. They met Babaji, they met the Christ, they met the Buddha in shape, not in a holographic image. And they had various other experiences that were straight on groundbreaking, including people dematerializing, bilocating, teleporting, traveling miles of distance without taking, months of time, because that back then you would travel by horse and buggy, right? I don't think trains were available, I'm not sure. And you would take months and months and years to go from one place to another. And those people were traveling in a split second. So it gave them the direct experience of this possibility. And they reported it in a book. So one of them, Bertie Splending, one of the scientists, the 11 scientists, reported these experiences in a book that is called The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. And it's a book not written through imagination, it's a book written through direct experience. Like the same you and me talked right now, he was talking with people that were able to do these experiences, bilocate, teleport, become invisible, read minds, read galaxies, project images that have happened like thousands of years ago. They would create a projection onto a wall so that you are able to see in real time what Jesus was doing when he was preaching in his early years. So all that was possible, and these scientists have had that experience, and they report it in this book. So that's what I recommend when people really want to read something that is not written by a yogi or a saint or I love the books of yogis. I've read them all that I felt were in resonance with me. But when you need to ground yourself a little bit, that's the book to read. And it takes you far off. I mean, you think you're grounding, but it takes you far off. Far, far further than what you believe is possible.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that recommendation, and just, even describing these sensations and just like you said, you know, bilocation, transformation, teleportation, you know, all of these abilities that many people see in Hollywood or see in movies, but don't really realize that actually are reality, you know, that they say the truth is stranger than fiction, you know?
Yeah, isn't it? Yes, and another thing that I feel to point that you brought up Hollywood. In Hollywood, you get the awareness of these things. Like they made the movie Limitless. They made the movie Lucy, which is a very good movie to watch. Most, if you look at Lucy with Scarlett Johansson, it's very true. Everything that they report in this movie, you know, including reaching higher percentages of how to use your brain and what happens at these higher percentages, the fact that you can read other people's minds, you can read future, past, or any timeline, you can influence other people's DNA, read their health state, change their health state, and so on. That is possible, of course, when you use the full capacity of your own brain and your whole energy body, which they didn't tell about. You can do all those things, and this is not a fiction. That's a documentary, if you look at it that way. But the only thing that is not true in all those movies is that people have to achieve those states by the use of a certain drug or substance or tea or something. You don't need any of that. Like, I've never in my life taken any tea or substance or any mind-altering thing to have these experiences. I've had these experiences through my own direct practice, working just clean with energy. No ayahuasca, no other mushroom, tea, frog, or you name it, whatever people are using now to enhance their consciousness. You're not enhancing your consciousness. You're slowing down the process of your evolution by quickening certain experiencing faster than your system is ready to integrate them.
Because, you know, even as you speak this, Christian, I'm asking myself, since I've seen so many interviews where you've described that, you know, where other people place a lot of value on, you know, wealth building and financial and career and this and that, you placed a lot of emphasis on just straight up, you know, meditation, qigong, energy work. You said that there were times where literally that's all that you wanted to do all day long. Like, you didn't have any, there was no notion to do anything else. Like, all you wanted to do was meditate, you know?
Today is the same, to tell you the truth. I have very, very little interest in other activities. Even when I go do other activities, I go when I'm called to, when I'm placed there. So I join groups that do ecstatic dance, but that's a form of meditation eventually. I go to, I went recently, but not very often. I went to, for example, Oriental dance show where various goddesses, various ladies would do Oriental dance. That was a form of meditation. I was honoring the divine feminine in each one of them. So for me, that was no different than looking at the image of a goddess in a picture of a yantra or whatnot. You know, it was the same. I was invited to a friend's birthday recently, which was another social activity that I didn't often do back in the day. And that was a form of meditation because I was following people's life and their lifetime and timelines. So for me, when I'm placed in a certain social environment, I just find a way to meditate there. And that's all that happens. And even if I'm dancing or talking to people or hearing stories or telling stories, it's just a form of meditation, basically. So my interest is still the same. Just I've learned to develop it in a more social way because apparently it is necessary now.
Okay. So, So
Yeah.
could you touch on, because I like what you said, that you haven't had any outside substances externally interfering with your consciousness and your level of awareness when it comes to you feeling the expansion of your own energy field. And can you touch on,
Yeah.
where does the pleasure of meditation come in with, with the internal, the orgasmic states that you can reach, that you said helps in being autonomous, and just really circulating the chi, circulating that energy in your own body, and how that can be self-fulfilling on its own for you,
Yes. Can you tell me the
Yeah,
question again? Because I got kind of lost in the state that you were
right. So,
transmissioning.
so I,
So
so I
what should I
remember
talk about?
hearing you and Elitam in the discussion where you were talking about the
Yeah.
pleasure of harnessing and circulating energy, and that moving chi in your body actually can allow you to be more autonomous and even kind of remove certain codependencies that people might tend to rely on others for. You can have that with yourself,
Yes.
you know?
Yes, yes. I will explain that with a story because it's the best thing that comes to mind. For a long time, since 2013, for 10 years, I gave conferences and talks and interviews and so on. And at some point last year, at the beginning of last year, I was tired of it. I said, I feel I'm done. I was feeling that I'm done since 2019. Almost was about to leave my body because I was done. I was literally done. My job was done. Everything was done. So I looked at what would be fun to do for the next stage if I chose to stay on Earth, right? It's interesting to look at what's the fun activities that make my heart sing, that what way of manifest would manifest more energy here without effort, again, the effortless way of being. And I rediscovered the pleasure of dancing. I danced through my life, constantly, but now it became a current habit, and it became one that I would share with others more. So I started joining ecstatic dance groups, and then I started to have again my own ecstatic dance ceremonies with cacao elixir and sound healing. So that's my pleasure for the last 2 years, since 2000, the beginning of 2022, and it's still ongoing. When you are dancing and moving that energy wildly, unbridled, completely free, prana moves through you naturally, the same way as in Qigong. Only in Qigong you have a certain set of movement that you have to kind of follow through. If it's a certain way of Qigong that you're following. If it's naturally built-in Qigong, like you move your Qi and you move with Qi, that's a flow, right? But in dance, when it's meditative dance or ecstatic dance, as they call it now, you are completely free. So you just move your energy, you would say randomly, but it's not random because it's how spirit wants to move it through you. And the amount of freedom and ecstasy and elation and expression also, because some energies need to be expressed. Sometimes you don't have enough, or you don't get enough elation just by sitting in one place meditating, for a long time. Sometimes the elation comes from movement. You need to move that energy. You need to raise it through your centers. You need to play with it, even with your hands. Send it to certain corners of the room or certain corners of the city or the planet or the galaxy, right? When you do these movements, actually energy is being sent. And it's not far-fetched that Qigong is constituted of these types of movements. Same way in dance, you do these movements, you move this Qi, you are connecting with such beautiful planetary ley lines, for example, or sacred sites, or any other point that you can focus your awareness on, and the ecstasy is limitless. And you're using no substance; you're just by yourself. Yeah, so that's another game that I love to play. It's ecstatic, it's orgasmic, it's free, it's and it's freeing. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
I hope I answered your question. I'm not sure, but that's what it came to talk about.
No, thank you for expressing it just, authentically and just so honestly and just being really open and transparent, because when you talk about the internal orgasmic states that can be reached through meditation, be reached through dance, and even the circulation of qi through qigong, how do you feel like that could break off soul ties or soul bonds, or even that codependency that one might have with a partner? Meaning, like, how could the
Yes.
union with the energy be even more palpable or even more powerful than the union with another?
Yes. I'll say something that is very, sometimes it's not easy to digest for some people. The codependency that is created between partners comes from certain energy ties that are created in the lower centers. Like there's a science to it. And when you move this energy from the lower centers to the higher centers, when you start circulating it, there's nothing to cling on from the other side. There's nothing there. You're becoming self-sufficient. I feel very often, as I've been in partnerships over these, I've been in brahmacharya for 2 or more years just by myself, and then I've experienced some tantric partnerships, and then I've chosen a long-term relationships. So I like to play with various degrees of communion, right? Or commitment even. And I've discovered that to be in that type of commitment, sometimes you need to kind of get into the game of not necessarily codependency, but togetherness. In that way that you are with yourself, but you are with an external person in one way or another. And you're starting to weave certain ties and bonds so that you can actually be together with them. Because otherwise, if you're all very, very pulled back within, there's no interest in relating to another. There's no other. There's nothing outside your own emanation. So when you play that game of somewhat duality, or going into a dual expression of yourself, the masculine and the feminine, which is still you, there are certain ties and bonds that can be created either by you or by the other person through your own expectations, dreams, or wants, or through your own, if any, expectations or needs or wants. And that's always playing in the lower centers. While you pull up your energy into the heart and beyond, there's just unconditional love, complete intuitive sharing, infinite understanding, and from here up, nothing else matters, So it depends on, you got it, right? So it depends on where your energy is basically centered. Sometimes you bring it down low because you need to have a certain type of sharing with a person, but when you dance it back up, there's no one else. There's no one to cling on, no one to cling on you. There's nothing else. There's literally nothing else. Yes, I have had that experience of playing between these fields, and it's really like, it's literally becoming a game more and more. And I've played this, I've played the suffering and the attachment and the discomfort, and I've played the complete detachment and the pulling back all the energy back within a focal point, and I've played the coming back into the attachment, and it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing of bringing both worlds together and merging them and playing within them like that.
And what would encourage you, and thank you for that explanation, by the way. Thank you. I've never heard anybody, break things down like this. This is just, I'm doing my best to really digest, And what would inspire you to continue to play instead of just choosing to stay in that higher,
Well, the choice of being embodied, the choice of embodying my light has encouraged me to do so. Embodying embodying your light doesn't just involve embodying it through your higher centers all the way down to here. You need to go down below. And this is the time of embodied enlightenment now. Grounding doesn't just mean sitting on the ground or bathing in hot water or, drumming. It actually basically means accepting your humanness, accepting that you have a human body, that you're meant to have a human experience, that it has highs and lows, that you can have emotions that are not always the most appealing to others. Like you can shout and scream sometimes, you can be furious, you can be whatever humans experience, like jealousy or whatnot, and accepting that as part of your life, as part of your being, as part of how you've come into this world through this incarnation. Yes, you are not that at your core, but it is part of your human experience. It come from your DNA, your genetic codes, your previous incarnations, your cellular memories from other lifetimes, the experience of other people, picking it up from partners, picking it up from people that are dear to you, whatever, but you are having it. It's here with you, it's yours, or it's picked up by you for some reason and you need to experience it. So when you're accepting that, you start to alchemize through it, bringing your light down through it, down to earth, like all the way down to the roots. And it's then that it's fully manifested as embodied enlightenment. So I don't focus on enlightenment anymore, as sages did when they were leaving their body or living out of their body most of the time. That's been done before.
Okay.
We've checked it. At the human level, we've checked it. We've had our Buddhas, we've had our Jesuses, we've had all these generations before. Now it's time for a next stage where you actually live in your fullness of your highest of energies, but in your physical body, and bringing it down, bringing that down here involves fully accepting these human experiences.
Okay.
And it took a while for me to get that. It took a while for me to get that.
So it wasn't always easy to accept that humanness?
Well, for me, I'm aware of many other aspects of mine which aren't human at all. I'm living them as we speak. I'm living multidimensionally. I'm aware of my functions in other realms of existence that are far more empowered, far more vast, far more expanded, if you will. And compared to that, the human experience, as I was having it some years ago, was very limiting. So that was hard to accept. To come from a world where you can shift realities at the blink of a thought and come here and try to manifest, whatever. It was hard to accept. It was hard to accept. I've had lifetimes here on Earth which were much easier in terms of the degree of easiness, that I was having back then. So this lifetime was was not always sunshine and rainbows. I've had my own struggles. I've had a lot of pain, physical pain, emotional challenges, and so on, that were not easy to digest when I knew what I really can be and do. Like, it was like, how on earth did I end up in this type of situation? Why on earth have I chosen to experience this kind of thing when I was experiencing dematerialization and instant manifestation and having my wishes fulfilled even before I knew I needed anything in previous lifetimes? A much higher way of vibrating here on Earth. And how on earth did I have ended up having a human experience where I can experience limitation? Like, why did I choose that? It felt stupid, at some point. Some 8 years, 10 years ago, I was struggling with that. Yeah, because I was remembering. And even experiencing different realities where things are not limited at all. So, so to learn to get back to that limitlessness, which is basically our ultimate nature, it really is, like, no doubt about it. It is our, I've lived it time and time again here on Earth in various other shapes and various other timelines. It is our nature. I know because I remember. And I've also experienced it in this lifetime. So that's what I like.
Yeah. And
ultimately. Yeah. That's what like, that's her nature. Why on earth would I fool myself that it's normal to have disease or aging or hunger or lust or unfulfilled desires that are not even good because they're damaging our own spirit? So all that stuff that is woven in a matrix to hold us prisoners in a loop here that sometimes I've touched upon to know what it is and how it feels as experience for a human, and I've learned to experience and accept that. That is a game. It's really a game, and as much as it can be bewildering or upsetting or disappointing or whatnot, it's not our permanent or essential state. Having lived it, having experienced it, having had ins and outs of it, and having seen that grid with my own eyes, like I've truly seen it. I've known how it's built, and I know that it's kept in place by the free will of humanity, this weirdness of free will that we call free will, but it's actually a constant loop of repeating patterns. It's not free will. The free will is freedom. Our real free will, which is the will of the divine being manifested through us, is freedom, is unboundedness, is limitless. That's our free will. The rest of it, what we call free will, which is manifested as suffering, pain, killing each other, killing other beings, all that kind of stuff, that's not free will. That's a loop of pattern. We're not aware that we're not manifesting free will, but a loop of pattern where people are held prisoner to be harvested energetically. We're not even aware of that. We call, I have my free will. I can experience suffering the way I want. No. You are caught in a pattern. You are harvested energetically. Somebody is feeding off that. Don't be fooled. So I know that. And sometimes, yes, I got upset. It was hard to accept.
Thank you for your honesty and your openness, with this, because it is a really touchy topic. It has so many complexities because, like you said, Christiana, you're like, why would I choose that experience, or why would I even choose that thought process or even belief system when it came to disease? And I like you even said aging, because I remember hearing you talk about how, going back to the teachings of the masters of the Far East, you said certain people today are almost throwing away their immortality. You're throwing away their, can you talk about that? How we might be throwing that away, and how a lot of people just kind of, reside in that consciousness of aging?
Yes. I'm loving some comments that I'm seeing, and I want to address them in the same context that you're asking now, because they're very well woven together with what you asked. So, Prophetess Nabia is saying that I chose to wake up in this reality because one second. I'm reading through it. Because your purpose is yet to be fulfilled. You aren't done here yet. So I'm thankful for that comment. But even though I'm not done here yet, and we're not done here yet, we don't have to stay here through suffering. I just want to address that. Somebody, if I understood well, is that you're still experiencing suffering because you're not done here yet. You can be done here and live with joy. and still choose to be here, but with joy. You can still continue your lifetime for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years, and there are beings who done so, by living in joy. It's not that you are only staying here for as long as you're having suffering to experience or karmic will. You can still stay here in joy. That's the newness on this planet right here, right now. That's what the Christ came to announce, and the Buddha and the others, and we didn't get it, and we thought that we still have to sacrifice, suffer, and play in poverty for us to be spiritual and accepted by the divine. That's not the truth. That's not what they said and shown. That's not their example. We want to live through the example of the Christ, but he never really explained that you need to be poor or suffering. That's not what he's shown. He's shown the overcoming of suffering and the overcoming of death. He represented that through his direct experience, and others too, and they stayed in their luminous body or their bodies of light and appeared to others like Mary Magdalene and the apostles and all the others that have had a direct experience with him ever since, including the people in the book that I told you about, that have seen that same being that has been crucified and sacrificed and so on 2,000 years ago, being very happy, very nicely dressed, and very physically present, with no touch of suffering whatsoever. They stayed in pure bliss here on earth. So that's the next level that they've shown, and that we should eventually comprehend and represent and embody while we are here. And I think that answers the question about immortality to a certain degree. There's no point in being immortal and suffer. There's no point in being immortal and struggle. Who wants to live in suffering and pain and decay for more, even more tens of years? No, if the body starts decaying, you want to go. Like, there's no desire of squeaking your moves out the door and back in and so on. You're only being happy here if you're able to master your mind, your emotions, and your physical shape to be in shape.
Okay. And with that mastery of your mind, your emotions, your body, with that complete mastery, is that something that encourages you to continue, or that allows you to say that I would rather stay here and continue on till whenever I feel like leaving?
Right now, I have no desire of staying or leaving. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I don't know if I am able to convey that properly, but it doesn't matter. Like, the things that I was meant to experience with the physical body, I've experienced them already. I'm now not looking for physical experience that would fulfill my curiosity anymore. Be them in the realm of taste, touch, sexual, or anything. I am done in that respect. I'm still happy to feel, caress on my skin, the wind on my face, the heat of the sun, and so on, the taste, the smell, and everything. But I'm not going for it for another thousands of years just to feel and experience stuff like that. I've checked that, check, that line. Yet, if it's of any benefit or in any way useful that this body is here, then I have nothing against it either. Or a desire to leave, per se. That would make me happier in another realm. If I didn't have a body in this realm, I would be freer and this and that, what people think. I don't think that. I am as free with a body or without it. it's the same in terms of I can be here in this body and talk to you, but I have other experiences in other shapes and forms that are still ongoing
Right.
as we speak. So I don't have to leave from this place to be
Right.
in another place with more attention and more focus. Like I told you, with these experiences that I was appearing in different places
Right.
without my awareness of here. My awareness was fully here, yet part of me was having a fully different experience in another place in the same physical realm. Imagine in other realms. So there's no need to leave from somewhere to be somewhere else. We are having an ubiquitous, multidimensional
As we
experience as we speak.
speak. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
as we speak. So who knows who's shaking hands with us as we speak. So that's why staying or leaving is
Wow.
basically the same.
Wow. Wow. Because, you know, in your understanding, when it came to meeting, because I remember reading in the book about you and, well, you talked about Pralajani, you know, and,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
meeting with Pralajani, and I saw the pictures with you and Pralajani and the videos with you and him and how he showed you different things. And, you know, I didn't know all the behind the scenes that you were with him, but it sounded like you spent a considerable amount of time with him. Am I right?
No,
Just a day.
just a day.
Okay, so only just that day.
Then he left his
Right.
body.
So it felt like you
Yeah,
had been with him for a while, just feeling that energy. But, you know, for just that day, why do you feel like he chose to leave? You know?
he was done.
Hmm.
He was done. He was knowing what, many of us were about to leave at that stage, including myself. We have completed a cycle. We have transmitted a certain energy on this planet that we came here to bring. For him, it was the paradigm of being in a physical body without the need of food or water, and many other miracles that he expressed during his lifetime. He's done it all. Plus, his body, he was very energetic. He was very strong. At his 92 years of age, he traveled 12 hours to meet us in Pyramid Valley in Bangalore. So traveling through various flights at 92, imagine people who are shying away from traveling at 70. And after traveling all that night, he was so alert and energetic and so vivid compared to his traveling bodies who are in their 40s or 50s, and they were like, and so his body was well preserved
Mm-hmm.
and strong. As he pulled my hand, he was having true strength, no sign of decay. But when we saw what was coming on Earth and how much heaviness was coming on Earth with the pandemic, because it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, many of us were ready to not put themselves through that experience,
Wow.
really. Many of us. For me, it was a constant pain in my physical body all the way through the winter of 2019, right before it started. I was having aches and pains that are unimaginable for human comprehension or bearing. So I'm imagining sensitive people like me were having similar experience to a certain degree. And we're also not necessarily happy to witness all this shenanigan. And sometimes transmuted and alchemized it through their own physical bodies. He has done his job. He has been hospitalized. Imagine at that degree of awareness to sit in a hospital being guarded by 35 people that are constantly watching you if you drink or pee every day and making sure that you don't drink your pee eventually. They were also doing that. So all that stuff at that degree of awareness was enough. twice, you know, and many other things that he has been through, and many other, you know, all this suspicion and also the people clinging, you know, wanting to get
Yeah.
something from him because there's a whole team pulling and so on. Why stay? I mean, there was
Okay.
no need.
Okay. So, you know, when so many people's attention was like always focused on what he was doing, or, you know, the beliefs that he was breaking, or even just the decades that he was going without consuming anything, you know, food or drink, that was the focus. And when he left, you know, people were shocked. You know, they were like, what, how did this happen? Like you said, there was no decay. He wasn't on his way, but he left that day, and you were not surprised.
I was sad, though. I was seeing that his almost, you know, I mean, his presence in the physical realm was very little compared to the amount of presence he was having out of his body. So he was way gone before he was gone. And if you look at the recordings and the pictures, you would see how much of his consciousness was actually way vaster than the focus on the physical. Yet, when you meet such a soul fam member and you finally touch and, you know, see that they exist in physical and you're able to hold hands and, you know, pull your fingers, like it was like a child's play all that day. And the next day, or not necessarily the next day, but in less than a month, they're out of their body, and you know that you're never gonna, because I was about to meet him again, and he solicited that we meet again, and he told me to come back 1 week after the festival in the city he was in, which was the city he was also tested in. I went there, and the members of the team that was taking care of him didn't let me come through. They lied, they did stuff, and didn't let this meeting happen. And then the airport closed, and I had to fly back to Romania. And then he left his body. And there was another transmission that was supposed to happen between us that only happened in the non-physical realm because that was impeded by his team. That's something I never said before, which made me sad to a certain degree. Because I did my best to be there and meet the, you know, the meeting that was appointed by him. And he also knew that we were about to meet again. That's why he suggested that. So so in that respect, that didn't make me happy. I accepted it. It is what it is, or whatnot. But he was a very dear being to me.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for just expressing.
So I have my own sometimes my own sadness, if you will, my own moments of you know the inner child being sometimes disappointed, but that also it's quick to pass, of course.
Yeah. Thank you just for showing the humanness, you know, showing these sides of you that some people don't get to see all the time, you know, and just showing that, you know, you're having this experience just as much as anyone else, you know?
Yes, sometimes because I had times when I felt no emotions. I was always in this higher energy that we call 5D, 6D, and more, and no emotions really. Everything would happen. Like someone is asking, how do I not absorb the suffering of others, or how do I watch others suffering and not absorbing anything? Someone is asking in the comments. I wouldn't be moved if someone, I mean, I would feel the suffering, sometimes also in my own body, but I wouldn't cling to it even with a split second of a thought. It wouldn't stick on me. It would just be a reality like all the other realities, and I would just observe everything. So I was in that state constantly, and everything would happen around me or through me, but without me moving anything inside, you know. And it was for a while that it was like that, and then I got back to feeling emotions, which is very interesting now, as a process, you know, being again in my somewhat humanness. It's a necessary experience because you learn new ways of alchemizing that from new perspectives, from new angles, if you will, that you're then able to convey to others, which is very useful. Again, um, so as long as I chose to be in this human experience, I've chose to also have a full down-to-earth experience and not just watching everything from out of the body or the higher centers and so on, like I've explained earlier. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. You know, I love this whole conversation is just, it's gone so many places that I had no idea it would go. You know, I thank you for
Oh,
just letting it flow so effortlessly.
yeah.
And, you know, like you said, just being in that feminine energy of allowing things to go wherever they wanted to in the moment. And, you know, I hope this is not the last time we get to do this. I know this is the first time that we've done this, but I feel like there's so much more that we could explore. And just thank you for gaining the
Yeah.
time, not spending the time. You gained the time today.
We are all gaining it because if you look at the comments in parallel with what we're sharing here, or in addition even, there's a whole conversation going on where people are sharing, you know, impressions and advice and supporting each other, and there's whole community building some parallel energy in addition to that conversation. And I see many people who participated in the festival or several other talks of mine or yours discussing with each other, not necessarily asking questions to us, but discussing with each other in parallel with this conversation. So it's like a Pranic festival, you know, to a smaller degree, but very beautiful. I would invite people to ask some final question. What do you think
Sure.
about it?
You know, absolutely.
If anybody that wants to actually, because I've seen the conversations going on and it's interesting, and some of them I replied by picking up telepathically, some I'm looking at them right now. It's pretty much parallel conversation going on here. But let's see, Luxolu or others who are talking over there, do you have any questions for
Yeah.
us? We know that you know how to transmute things into love and
Yeah,
stuff.
in these last moments that we
Yeah.
have, you know, just anybody that wants to ask a question, feel free. You know, now is the opportunity. You know, I had a whole list. I still have a whole list of questions, but I want to save it for the people that have been so gracious to join us live, you know.
Mm. That's beautiful. Let's do this again. Let's meet, for example, 4 days from now or next week or something, and let's continue. It's beautiful. I feel it's building up some beautiful energy for people. And when I'm free, I can do this again. I mean, I'm having fun. It's nice. It's good. It's good energy. I'm
All
enjoying
right.
it.
All right. So we'll come again
Yeah.
then. Awesome.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right. All
Yeah, anytime. I'm seeing, yeah, so or if anyone has something to ask, that's fine. Or if you have anything more to ask, I'm also open to that,
yeah,
of
so
course.
for anyone, you know, first of all, definitely, you know, referring your book to anybody who hasn't read this book. It's called The Pranic World Book, and I would recommend it. It's on Amazon, so you can go ahead and grab this. We were talking about it earlier, and I made so many, you know, so
Yeah.
many things that you can gather from that. And just any of your services or offerings, like you said, you do one-on-one sessions. Anything that you would like to let people know where to go to receive that?
Yes, yes. Uh, in my bio, which is on my Instagram, Eltrayan, you can see all the next events or other services that are available. And that's where you can find the next best things. I have an offering this Friday. We do a meditation for Easter because we celebrate Easter. We've celebrated in the Catholic tradition last weekend, and we celebrated for the Orthodox tradition because in my country there's many Orthodox people. So for Easter, but basically for enlightenment and embodied enlightenment, because that's what Easter is basically about, we have another meditation with sound healing and cacao ceremony and ecstatic dance that we do on Friday. And it's going to be at about 4 p.m. Romania time, which I don't know which timelines are you, but I'm sure you can join us. And it's also happening online. So we've had people online coming in, and I'm playing. Let me show you. I'm playing with these amazing sound healing bowls that are literally working wonders. It's not me, but them that do some beautiful miracles on people. And then there's cacao rituals, and there's also, of course, dancing that happens at the end. And we're gonna do this, and I'm gonna do a pranic process before Easter that I'm starting and will continue until Easter and till the end of our Easter. And of course, the Pranic Festival in Romania that people, I would be happy for them to already book their places because we have limited amount of rooms, and it's beautiful to know who's in and we can play with, of course. And some of the viewers here have been there already and are knowing what type of experience that is here in Romania in August 15 to 18. Yeah, those would be the next best things that I can think of that would bring that value really to people. So we can meet on Friday firsthand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been such fun to share all this with you. And is there any final things that come to mind that you would like to address? Because I feel there's something important that hasn't been shared, but we haven't yet asked.
What was that you felt?
I'm not sure. It's just the feeling that we're not done yet, but I'm not sure what's next to share. I'm just holding space for whatever needs to come.
You know, just gratitude. All I can feel right now within me is just gratitude. You know, this was just awesome, just to hear from your experience, to hear from your testimony, and to really feel on a level that, like, you know, people, when they see certain people and they have perceptions, it's good to really just feel somebody's energy and realize that, you know, you're similar in so many ways that you didn't realize, you know, and to feel that it's really awesome, you know.
Yes, and that comes from openness, that comes from staying open to any type of experience that you're meant to have without putting any label. It comes from staying open to the other person's emotions or sharings. You never know what might come through. Never judge someone, because then you limit your experience that you might have with them. When you let them free to be expressed in whichever way they're meant to be expressing, then you are free to have an amazing experience with them. When you're judging them, thinking, oh, they're arrogant, or they're fake, or they're this and they're that, then you're going to have pretty much that limited experience or no experience with that person. You know? I felt people judging me, and they didn't get to really experience, you know, the gifts that they could actually receive. Yeah, because they built that wall for themselves, not being able to reach out. And it's good to just stay free and be open to whatever needs to come.
And you know, one of the reasons why this has been an amazing experience is that you actually brought something to mind. Like you actually revealed something.
Yes, tell me about it.
When you were speaking on meditation and the difference, like all the different meditations that we can do, how, you know, this can be a meditation, that playing that sport, doing that dance, you know, painting that picture, you know, how it's all a meditation. I realized one of my favorite forms of meditation is what I've been doing right now with you. You know, this has been a
Exactly. Yeah. It's very, 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 you know, opening and fulfilling. And when you stay present to a conversation and you're in the alpha theta state, like we do in the one-on-one sessions or when we're sharing conferences, it's just amazing. You're just enriched and you're tuned in and you're jazzed up by the energy that comes in. And my work has been basically my deepest spiritual practice. I'm most energized and most elated or evolved, upgraded in my consciousness when I actually work with people, because it's then that source really comes through at the highest level, that they bring it up. They bring it out, they bring it down, I would say. Yeah. So it's the highest practice, basically, to be in a conversation or to be present with people for whatever they need.
I agree. So we'll do it again.
Yeah. Blessings to all. Hope to see you all in our next pranic process. It's starting tomorrow at 12 Romania time. We'll be having an online sharing and then continuing for the next 7 days or 8 days, counting tomorrow. And on Friday, we dance together and we play the balls. So see you soon, everyone. And Jerome, thank you so much for being here and having this beautiful conversation. And somebody was sharing about having similar experience with almost being hit by a car. We didn't share much of it in this book, the Pranic World Book, but I've written a book on miracles, which is called Believe in Miracles. And it's still yet to be published in English. It has been published in Romania in 2015. When that will be published, you will have more experience to read from that book that's really, really, addressing the topic that you've asked about. Somebody was asking about it. So thank you, adventuring me, for this question. That's the name of the person asking. Yes. So somebody's asking, and I'm saying too, can't wait to watch this whole thing live. I can't wait to watch it because I have no idea what we've talked about. We were all in the flow. I can't wait to rewatch it and see it. So please send me a link or something so that I can, I can also see our conversation. Thanks so much. Blessings to all. Thank you and grateful for your presence. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.